I was pretty excited because I know the developers that are working on this project, and they're doing some neat things for us on Larchmere Boulevard. And I thought, hey, this is a great opportunity to really try to reinvigorate one of Cleveland's most historical neighborhoods in the city. So I'd like to thank UCI, Chris, Debbie, and Laura, and the whole team for really including me in this conversation. Whenever I start to go through this process, I really like to make sure that we have a community engagement process. I know that Hessler Street or Hessler Avenue is a brick street, and I know that Hessler Court is a wooden street. And I know that they really have a lot of historical value. And I have already reached out to Public Works to talk about, what kind of things can they recommend to me to look at the infrastructure in the area. I've already heard from some of you that that is something that's very important. But today, I do want to let you know that we're here to hear from UCI, their process, what they've gone through, and also hear from the developers today. But I want to just let you know that anytime Ward 6, Blaine Griffin has a project of this scale and magnitude, I always try to make sure we get community and stakeholder input. And I thank you all for coming today. You can always reach me at my office at 216-664-4234, 216-664-4234, or B Griffin at Cleveland City Council, BGRIFFIN at Cleveland City Council .org. With that being said, I'm going to introduce the president and CEO of University Circle Inc., Chris Ronayne, and he'll take us from there. And of course, I'll be on this call looking forward to the engagement. And thank you for being such great longtime residents of Cleveland.
Thank you, Councilman Griffin, and good evening, everybody. As Councilman said, I'm Chris Ronayne, president of University Circle Incorporated, and joined here tonight by Debbie Berry, our Vice President of Community Development, Elise Yablonsky, our Planning Director, and other UCI staff who are going to walk with the developers and the architects proposing through a process. Somebody reminded me today, as we get into a meeting with now 55 participants, thank you all for joining. We ought to at least remind folks who we are at UCI. So very quickly, many of you know us well, but we are a nonprofit community service corporation serving the University Circle area, and we've been doing that since 1957 here in the neighborhood. We got a report at our community development meeting today about housing and housing trends and how much has happened over the last decade or decade and a half. Since about 2007, we've added about 1,600 units to the neighborhood, and there are nearly as many more on the way, and more of the western stretches of the neighborhood as a concentration of development will happen there. What that does for us is continue to provide vitality, pedestrian eyes on the street, persons who walking through retail and giving our commercial stretches a chance, also giving transit a better chance, and giving just the general feel of the place as an energetic, vibrant place. So I'm grateful that the Baruch and Marin team are joining us today to continue with yet another proposal for, I think, what will add to that vibrancy. So it's a pleasure working with you and continuing to grow a neighborhood here in Cleveland, Ohio. Proudly, Councilman Griffin in the 6th Ward and in the 9th Ward and in the 7th Ward. We're lucky to share 3 councilmen. And this block, actually, Hessler is just at the crossroads of the 6th and 9th Ward, but glad to have you as our representative, Councilman Griffin, and appreciate you being with us as busy as you are with budget hearings going on at the City of Cleveland and your new chairman post at the Safety Committee for the City of Cleveland. So thanks again. When we get started here, I want to just orient you with 3 framing slides, and I'm just going to linger on the opening slide for a minute. And then I want to remind folks that for Q&A and comments, please offer them into the chat at any time, and we can take them as we go, or we can collect them and take more later, as we are joined also by the CIRC team, our architects, who can help walk you through the design as well. But with the opening slide you see here, I just wanted to orient you to the site that we're talking about, and really appreciate those nearest by, our neighbors on Hessler and some of our surrounding streets, for being here, and also anybody from the region that's joined us tonight that just cares about Cleveland. Blaine said, this is such a special street. It is just one of the most historic streets in Cleveland and frankly, the country. It was the first landmark district in the city of Cleveland, and we're proud of that being here in University Circle. We thank you, residents and neighbors, for keeping the energy and the vitality of this place up. So this is at the crossroads of Ford and Hessler, where you see the diagram outlined between two homes, two existing structures, I should say, and a vacant lot that UCI plans to transition into new hands. The structures on Ford Road, which we'll get into, are historic from our perspective and deserve a good renovation rehabilitation. And I think you're going to see a good one proposed. There have been proposals to take down these structures. Our staff felt, and in concert with our board and also Landmarks Commission, that we did not think that appropriate for the neighborhood. What we wanted to see were renovations. And I did want to also welcome the Landmarks staff to this conversation tonight from City Hall, and anybody else here from City Hall. We appreciate you, Don Pettit, and the team at Landmarks Commission. So on Hessler Road, and as it turns onto Ford, we are in a very dynamic place just to the west of Uptown, the northwest of Uptown, across the street from Case Western's campus, and really all surrounded by Case Western's campus, and just off Euclid Avenue, and just across from the historic Commoner Place Apartments, which were renovated in 2005, and the parking garage that UCI owns just across the street from Ford. And also there's a National Historic District just to the other side of the street, just off of Bellflower and Ford, that's a part of the Case Western campus. So this gives you sort of a site orientation from a bird's eye view. And I'm going to now transition to 3 more slides and then give it back over to the team. And that has to do with what our University Circle Inc. Staff and board has laid out as a planning framework and design principles. 1975 and 1981 are the street addresses of the 2 Ford Road structures. Again, you've probably walked by them. Some of you live right near them, and some of you may not have noticed them on your walk by, but they've been with us for quite some time and owned by UCI for quite some time. So as we transition them into new hands, we are interested in, again, seeing the rehabilitation occur. And the 1975 home, which is just at the corner of Hessler and Ford, it's a wood frame home, and we're hoping that that wood finish remains, and that a color palette is proposed by the developer that is befitting of a historic district. Our 1981 Ford property is a brick combination structure that is actually 4 units up and down and front to back. At 1981, our hope is that we can continue to maintain vibrancy on the street by maintaining the inviting front porches, accentuate natural light where possible, and in all cases install landscape and plantings that are hardy and 4-season acclimated for the Cleveland 4-season climate, especially a day like today that we're in. So this is just a overall reach at the planning framework and design principles for the existing structures. Basically, the operative is preserve, complement, and enhance. And we'll go to the next slide. So there's also on this site plan a vacant lot. I want to start right out of the gates by saying to Hessler Road residents, as Councilman said at the outset, the history of the street, the festival, the conscience of the street, the verve of the street, everything that matters about Hessler and our history matters going forward. We believe that this lot can also enhance street vitality, and certainly willing to work with anybody who wants to find a home for a garage that's on the site. And I believe residents who are very closely associated with the Hessler street fair know what I'm talking about. But I did want to say that as it relates to a vacant property, we do look at this as an opportunity to enhance, to infill, and to animate the street. So what our staff and board are aligned on is the idea of an actual development on the site, infilling appropriately, aligning the building and its setback to its neighboring properties, We do want to maintain a verticality that respects within 2 floors its neighboring properties. We want to incorporate design cues from on the street and across the street, such as balconies. And we do want to see a design that continues to promote that eyes on the street effect. Nothing beats some transparency on the street and people watching over each other from front porches and large windows. We want to maximize our pedestrian interface with the building, making sure that there are accommodation for mobility challenged through ADA accommodation is important to us. And we are striving ultimately for University Circle to be a universal design community that really enhances opportunities for every which way that people are getting around on wheels, wheelchairs and other, and we just want to make sure that that's respected along the way. We want to minimize curb cuts to the street. We do want the on-site vehicular parking garages and such, if they exist, to be minimal. We really want front doors, eyes on the street, windows and porches to be the preferred first sites rather than garages and driveways. We want, again, on all sides of this site for our installation of landscape to be 4-season hardy. Thank you. And those are planning design guidelines and framework that staff has presented to UCI board. And today, actually, our University Circle Community Development Committee met to overlook both 1975, 1981, and also the new site development. And their statement that they deliberated this morning comes out that they believe that the partnership of Baruch and Marin, who have been experienced developers on all sides of this property, Baruch on the north side with the townhome work that he did at Hessler and Hessler Court. I thought he did a great job, an award-winning job at that. Design Award, Building the Circle Award received a couple of years back. Thank you, Russell, and Rick Marin's work to really enliven a district that was a lifeless parking lot for decades at Uptown. Thank you, Rick. So on to a partnership venture that was formed right here in the Circle, I think, and getting to know one another here in the Circle. The University Circle Inc. Development Committee does believe that the site, per those framework and guidelines that I outlined per staff, does preserve, in the case of Ford, restore and respect existing fabric on Hessler, and provides the needed and desired infill. I'm sorry, on Ford, and does provide needed infill on Hessler. And then again, adds that residential density, which again, in Cleveland, we think in our neighborhoods, and particularly trying to lead by example in University Circle, we have a chance to help enhance the neighborhood vitality, support existing retail, promote the walkability and likelihood of transit ridership with more people on the street, increasing safety, again, with the idea that people watching over people, and committing again to high levels of design detail and also operational and management standards that are befitting for a vital neighborhood like this. It's really important. We build things well, but do we maintain them well? And so there are actually some built-in agreements with the developer team that's proposing to, again, maintain to the highest standard befitting of a historic district and a vital urban center. That's, I think, it for me, which was to give you some framing statements from our board, which is this slide and the 2 preceding guiding principles and a framework for action. We take this seriously. It's a main and main development, and we appreciate that this proposing team is about to present to us. And I want to say, again, there were some deliberation, and I think our team just through unanimous perspective decided that any takedowns of the structures on Ford would not be appropriate, that they were preservation worthy. And so you're going to see, I think, in the next slides, those preservation efforts for Ford and the new build for Hessler. So thanks for the opportunity to introduce, Councilman. We'll be back at some point, I believe, at Landmarks Commission and with further iteration with community and particularly neighborhood residents on the street in the time between. Thanks again. I'll turn it to you, Debbie, and I know that you and Elise are going to field questions or direct them as we go and as they come into chat.
Yeah, actually, I just want to clarify that the Q&A, use the Q&A question and answer function, please, to put your questions in. And we will verbally address the questions to the panel after the presentation. I think some of your questions could be answered as we go through this, but feel free to type them in throughout the presentation. And also the presentation is being recorded and will be available later if anyone wants to see it. So we'll turn it over to Russell and Rick.
Okay, first of all, before I get started, I'd just like to say that I think having Blaine, Chris, Debbie, and Elisa, I don't think you can come up with better people to help you with development in this area and just to maintain it. They're real assets, they're quality people, and you're well represented. So I just wanted to say that opening. The presentation that Chris just gave, Russell and I, well, first let me introduce myself, Rick Marin. I'm retired from MRN, doing this on my own. I retired about 2 years ago. Russell is my partner, and you know him because he has a structure on Hessler, amongst others. And Eva and Dan are the architects that helped us with the design. The first time that I've seen what Chris just presented as far as what they were looking for on the site, they didn't give us all that criteria. We actually submitted our proposal along with other developers based on, I would say, about 5 principles that Russell and I had. Basically, the first was a strong urban design. We felt that it had to be a design that fit in urbanly. We also wanted to respect and enhance Hessler, its tradition, its integrity, and the architecture. We also set a goal of respecting historic design. And we also set another goal that we want to make sure we incorporate the things that are needed in the community, issues and constraints within the community. And finally, I think we wanted to use intelligent and creative design and respect for lifestyle, which you'll see in part of some of the interiors. So with that, with the first slide, we're going to go building by building. And the first slide is the 1981 building. And from the exterior, we're happy with the exterior, how it looks. We don't want to change it. We want to leave the porches. We want to keep the integrity of the historical elements. Inside, however, we'll be doing a whole new remodel of each unit to make them more modern and not, they're really split up now with the kitchen in the rear and the living space in the front and the bedrooms in between, and basically one bathroom. There's another small one, but for one of the bedrooms, but in general, one bathroom. And instead enhance it with a much better layout, a redesign where there's a modern open kitchen that fits in with the living room. And that's what we're going to do with the 1981 building. The next is the 1975 building. If you could go to that slide, Dan. Yeah, that's the 1975 building. On that building, there are 5 apartments in there, and the layouts are fine with those. However, there doesn't need to be upgrades of kitchens and bathrooms and flooring and paint. So there'll be a redo, mostly a cosmetic type redo for each unit so that they have better appeal. On the outside, we felt that the colors to us didn't really tie together our projects and also didn't fit. So we're proposing a new color scheme for the outside. You can go to that slide, Dan. So that's the new color. And the idea was to come up with colors first that were historic. Second, that if you'll notice with the roof color, we wanted to not contrast. It's in the upper right-hand corner, the picture, the roof color contrasts with the siding. We wanted to integrate that. And then with the white trim complements the 81 building that you saw earlier. And it also complements the new building, which you'll see in a little bit, being lighter. It also lightens up, if you notice, actually the sun view is the same in both pictures, if you notice, but it's rather dark in the one, the old paint color scheme, and a new color scheme brightens it up a lot. So we thought of, on the corner there, it was a nice element. Okay, and this is a site. Okay, this is the back lot that we're. Okay, this is what I call the tooth that's missing lot, where it's not very romantic as you're driving down Hessler. It doesn't fit in with the character of the rest of the street. So that's where we're proposing the new development. And that is the rear lot behind the first three houses that we're proposing to put parking with, which that's kind of important from the community aspect, because with the new development, which you'll see, there's going to be 23 new units added, and the whole area has a parking dynamic which need to be addressed. And our proposal by putting the parking back there, first of all, it's an area that's not used for anything. It's not observed from anywhere. So one of the key things from an urban design is, even though there'll be parking back there, there'll be a fence to border it from the neighbors to the south, to the north. And there will also be a parking without any stress by putting more demand on the Hessler Street or any of the area around. It's a self-contained development, and it's not visual from any street, whether Ford or Hessler. You'll never see that. So it's kind of an opportunity to grab a space that it's very unusual to be able to do that. And the access to that is also on an existing driveway that already exists to get to that space. So once again, it doesn't add curb cuts, doesn't add stress from the Hessler Street. It doesn't add any additional stress from Ford, and it's all hidden. So I think it's a nice amenity for helping community issues of parking, not putting further demand on the area, and also visually not bothering anyone. Okay, now I think we'll go to the new project. Okay, what I'm going to do first, this is kind of, you may think this is backwards, but I'm going to start with the concept of the design that we've come up with and walk you through that so you understand that this is a different product than really anything that exists in Cleveland. And it's a micro unit, and I want to give you the idea and the changes we've made on it from when we first started. But let me walk you through an example. Front door is on the top of the green space. And when you come home, you would walk in that front door, and the visual that you see is what they call working overall. It's that lower right-hand picture. And you look, and it's all open all the way to a large window on the other end. So let's say you come home, you're tired from working, you want to relax, you sit on the couch, which is far down on the right, and across from you is a TV on the wall, and you can watch the news or whatever, and you can relax, and it's a totally open floor plan. It's only 460 square feet. So going to the next slide, you may say, you know what? I'm hungry now, I want to cook, so I'm going to go to the kitchen. So if you notice that desk from the previous picture that was in that alcove to the right, it's on wheels. It also has a remote so that you can raise and lower it. And it's the same countertop surface as a kitchen. So you can take that desk, roll it out to the center like you see in the lower picture, raise it up from the desk height to a countertop height, and then you can cook. You can work in the kitchen. You have an island that you can cook on, and it's a nice space to do that. The upper part shows a better view of what I was describing earlier, that living room with the TV on the wall. So one person could be sitting and watch TV while somebody else is cooking, or they both can, but that's that screen. The next screen is, okay, I'm done cooking. Now I'd like to have some people come over. This is post-pandemic. So the people come over, and that same table, you raise it up to, or I'm sorry, you lower it down to dining room height, and it becomes a dining room table. And those chairs you see are stored in one of the closets. One thing, and I'll stop for a second here, on all these screens, you notice there's a tremendous amount of cabinets on each side. They store everything. I'll get to the mechanicals in a minute, but they store everything in those cabinets, and there's no shortage of cabinets. And those chairs store in one of those cabinets. So you pull the chairs out, lower the table down, and you can have people come over. So then when you're tired of having the people over, you throw them out. And you say, you know what, I'm tired. So all of a sudden, that wall that has a TV on it, when you were sitting on the couch, that wall rotates. And you rotate it out perpendicular, the TV stays on it. So the TV is now in the lounge area of that blue. And there's a Murphy bed that you pull down, it's a queen size. And all of a sudden you have a full size bedroom with cabinets all over for your clothes, large window. And in this case, you have a couch in there as well. In the other room, because they're divided now, you have the desk, which you could always pull out if you wanted to cook. You could work at the desk, or you can lounge and watch TV on the TV. And the bathroom, while I'm on this slide, is a very large bathroom. It's bigger than most bathrooms. And it's totally tiled, either a European situation or what I'll describe in an upgrade to this option in a minute. But it's a very large, big bathroom, 6-foot countertop, same material as the kitchen. It's a nice counter with a huge mirror that's, I think 40 inches by 6 feet long, something like that. Now, this is 1.0, Micro's 1.0, just like Apple goes with their phones, the difference. Our 2.0 adds this is because of the pandemic, we came up with, how can we incorporate an office within the same 460 square foot print? So what we did is there's now a countertop that with those filing cabinets that store, the filing cabinets store in the closet to the right and left, and the countertop folds down when it's not in use so that the bedroom can function. In this particular situation, so then you take the desk that was in the other room, bring it over to here, and move the couch into the other room. They're all on wheels. And we also incorporated a countertop under the TV that can go up or down. So all of a sudden you have a huge shaped office area that's very large. It's actually bigger than mine. But this is the 2.0. The other thing that happens, it adds to the flexibility of it. First of all, it puts an office in the building, in the apartment, whether you want it or not. If you don't want it, you then eliminate, put it the other way, or if you do want it, you could actually leave it there. And the couch, we've incorporated in the design of the new couch, a very sturdy, well designed full-size bed that can be pulled out. And theoretically, somebody could leave their office, pull out the couch, which is across from the kitchen, and sleep in that area. And they could even open up, and you could do various combinations. You could open up the rotating wall, put the TV on there. You could watch TV in bed in that other room. You could sit on the couch and watch TV. So there's all different kinds of scenarios that you can use with the flexibility of the cabinetry. So that's 2.0. 3.0 is actually what happens on this particular project, which you'll notice on the next slide, the exterior views. There are now balconies. This is the floor plan. So there's 6 units on each floor and an elevator. So what you'll notice on this, we did not put in all 4 floors plans, but what you'll notice on every floor, there's a balcony now, which has been incorporated. And also, when you get to the top floor, there's only 5 units on the top floor because unit 5, which is the the southern, yeah, that one, the southern western unit, that is now a roof deck that is open. Can't be seen anywhere from the street or anything, but it's an open roof deck on the top. So that's pretty much a layout. And now for the visual of the units, that's the look of the units. If you notice, there's a lot of design that went into this idea. The first being that many of the houses on the street have front porches on them and have steps leading up to the front porch. So we incorporated that same design. So there's the front steps that go up. The porch is all open all the way across there. And also incorporated, taken from other elements of the street, is the brickwork that goes up a floor and a half and horizontally. That's all brick. So we tried to incorporate as much of the idea. We set back the building in line with the other building, with the houses down the street, so that it feels like it belongs in the street. The other thing, this is a side view, there's windows on this side which look at the houses, the 1975 and the 1981 houses. There are no windows on the east side of the building. But they're all on the front and this side and the back. So this is kind of the design. We feel it matches well with the brick streets. The colors match with the corner build, 1975. And they're both lighter structures, so they don't look so dark. And we tried to make them modern but historic. Modern in the essence that the units themselves are very unique and modern. So you want to have a statement that it's a modern building, but at the same time, you want to incorporate the elements of the street. You'll notice in one of the slides coming up, the large 5-story apartment building, it has the 2 balconies on each end of it. So that concept is taken a little bit from there, but I think enhanced by having it incorporated all the way across. This is the view looking down Hessler with the brick street. I don't know if I could divert with the councilman on the line, but I know everyone would like to see the street upgraded. I'll divert a little bit here and say we are not asking the city for anything for any help on development at all. And that being the case, as we all know, many developers do ask for infrastructure help. So maybe this would be an opportunity to enhance the street, one, by having this nice new structure on the street, and two, maybe getting the street repaired, which it could use. So that's just an editorial on the side. And then here's a view from the other, looking towards Ford. And then I think another, hope I'm not going too fast, is the contextual. This helps because on the bottom building, you can see the two, they're kind of far apart. You can see the two elements of the balconies there with the large brick in between. What's also interesting about this east is 37 foot. The house, our 1975 is, can you hear me? I'm getting an unstable connection.
You're back now, Rick.
Oh.
Could you repeat the heights of the building? I think that's where you cut off.
Okay. Our building, which you can see there, is 44.5 feet high. The house to the east is 37 foot high. And I can't read because of the pictures. I think it was like about 40 feet is.
That's correct. 1975 is around 40 feet.
Yeah, so even though we put a 4-story building on the street, contextually, it fits very well with on the street. And we're shorter than the building across the street. And for the buildings at the other end of the street, we're probably, I'm just guessing, we're probably a little bit under it. So contextually, it's not like we're putting a 40-story building on it. And we're also, this concept, not tearing down the whole corner and building a big, project. We're trying to keep the historic elements of the street, the houses, this building, and the rest of it, so that it makes a modern statement and it enhances the street itself and keeps all the character as well. This just shows the height across the street. It's what, 55 feet almost, and ours is 44.5. So we're shorter than the building across the street. And this is the view that shows all the different elements. There's a lot of different hardy board, brick, there's lap siding, vertical siding, and then we're also using stone bands for the columns, which also enhance and fit in with the rest of the character of the street. So I think that's pretty much, I hope I covered everything that everybody wanted. So.
Thanks, Rick. We really appreciate that. We have a number of questions in the Q&A. Please feel free to continue to submit the questions there. I do want to let everybody know that all of the questions and all of the comments that are entered into the Q&A will be shared with the Landmarks Commission and the Euclid Corridor Design Review Body. Because of the number of the people that we have online, we just thought it would be difficult to have a live Q&A and allow everybody the opportunity to ask a question, but we want to address all of the questions that are in the Q&A. So we're going to start with the questions and kind of go through them so that we can make sure the panel has a chance to address them. Again, your comments are important as well, and they will be submitted to the Landmarks Commission, but we're going to go ahead and address the questions first and get some answers coming back from there now. So one of the first questions that was asked was, of course, about the parking. And I think that, Rick did address that a little bit, but just to make sure we're really clear, I don't know, Rick, do you want to go back and just, again, talk about the parking option? And then we can add a little bit more to that as well.
Okay, can you go to the slide of the site? Okay, on my screen, yeah, it's pretty well shown there. The concept of the lot, I'll just talk about the gray area there, is you come off of Ford, you go down the existing driveway that already exists there. And there is a grade change that we're gonna have to excavate quite a bit around that area. And then we'll repave it. We'll put a fence high enough to block, maybe 6 foot or whatever, all the way around so it doesn't block or put any lights into the houses to the north. The idea of that parking is we're not sure how many spots we're going to need. With this proposal, there's two concepts. One is this normal direct-in parking that you have, and another is a concept of an electric car component. So you see those cars, there's 6 of them, I think, something like that, that fit into that little slim area. The idea there being we'll have electric cars, and people that want to participate in a program will be able to take the last car in there, drive it out and use it. Somebody else comes down, they could take another car, drive it out. But they're a shared car, so to speak. And then when they come back, they just pull it right behind whatever's there, and it gets plugged into an electric outlet there. So we can get more parking that way. And it's also a different concept for people that don't necessarily want to own a car, but have access to a car. The other, the direct-in parking, one of the concepts we have there, which may work for everybody. First of all, as I said earlier, it takes the stress out of parking, additional parking needed on Hessler Road, Ford Road, et cetera, and even in the area. So this is more of a community type. By having this amount of parking, we can satisfy our project totally with this parking and not put any stress on anybody else. At the same time, if we don't need all those spaces, there may be an opportunity, and I don't know if the neighbors are interested in this or not, but there could be an opportunity where we could put gates or walking gates, not car gates, on the north side of that fence, so that, or that walking area, so that people from Hessler could park there as well. So that's kind of the concept of it. And also the idea that it's not seen from any place. There's very few developments that get developed where they don't add a parking garage on and it's not very romantic. This really does not impact the visual integrity of Hessler or Ford in any way, but uses land much more effectively than just having an open area back there that who knows what could happen back there. So that's kind of my view of it.
And I'll just add really quickly that, as Chris noted early in the presentation, there is a parking garage right across the street. There are permits available in that garage, and we've been working with the development team to make those available going forward, as well as on-street parking. After 6 p.m., the meters are free, so for guests and others, I know there's a lot of activity in the circle, which we encourage, and so sometimes it's difficult to find that parking spot, but there is on-street parking in the area that's available. And residents of Hessler can get guest parking on that Hessler street as well. I know there's limitations, but I think, again, this project should sustain itself in terms of parking, and there's other opportunities for guests and others around there. So, Elise?
Sure, thanks, Debbie. Our next question is related to the RFP process and developer selection for this site. So Chris, if I could hand it off to you to speak to that question.
Oh, sure. Elisa and everybody, UCI's Community Development Committee does engage with developers, but they don't always conduct an RFP, if you will. In this case, it was an RFI, if you will, which is a request for interest or information. I believe the original request was directed to Russell Baruch of the Baruch Partnership side of the team, and it was kind of informed on the issue of his work on the townhomes at Hessler and Hessler Court. Again, I mentioned earlier that there was a proposal that was also received off of a RFI, but that was rejected on the board committee's premise that a demo just was not tenable on the Ford Road side, and we believe that Landmarks would feel the same. So a request for interest was brought out to Russell, and sometimes those are verbal, and that's what they requested, is to seek his interest, and it was informed again on the work that was done at Hessler and Hessler Court.
Great. And our next comment is about Hessler Street itself, and a question about whether or not the street is included in the rehab. Councilman, I know you spoke to this at the very beginning of the meeting. We might not have had everybody on there. Do you mind just readdressing what you said early on about the street?
Sure. Thank you, Deb. And I had a conversation with the capital projects and wanted to understand the status, because we don't have a brick streets program in the city of Cleveland. But I still have asked them to kind of give me at least a actual estimate of what it would be to do some patching and do some other things. And I will be honest with you, because I'm just a person that's fully transparent. The consultant for the city, when they did look at Hessler and a few other brick streets across the city, made a recommendation that that many of them be removed or put something more permanent, which is code word for put asphalt over it. So I don't believe that, because I love brick streets. I think brick streets are incredible. So I have asked them to give me an estimate for some patchwork. And once they give me that estimate, I will try to have conversations with the administration. But as of right now, we do not have a brick streets program, and it's very expensive. And I'm going to try to have to see what we could do, but I don't make promises I cannot deliver. So I will tell you that I do have them coming out there. So if you see city workers coming to do measurements and estimates, don't get too excited. But I did ask them to give me an estimate of what it looks like, what it would look like to do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I give you a stupid idea?
Rick, you've never been shy about giving me great ideas.
This probably is stupid, but is there any way that the city could prep an area, so to speak, and then the residents, everyone on Hessler, come together in some type of format to lay the brick themselves?
Rick, I think that would be beautiful if we were to be able to do something like that. But I would tell you, and I hate to be a bureaucrat, because I one thing I hate about government is that we find more ways to tell people why they can't do something than we do how they can do something. But when you look at liability and you look at the craftsmanship and other things, the city would be hard pressed to allow something like that to happen. But once again, I've asked Chief Brown as well as Matt Sprons, who runs MOCAP, Mayor's Office of Capital Improvement, and then also Chief Brown, who's the Chief Operating Officer, to at least give me an estimate and also give me kind of a status on what we could do to try to help with that road. Because I know it's in bad shape. I've been there several times, and I would not sugarcoat it. I know it's in bad shape. I just can't make a promise that I can't deliver.
It has a ton of characters, so this is not an open meeting, but I'll just reach out to other Hessler people if they want to get together to try to come up with some idea to present to the city. I'd be open to participating.
And I'm open to ideas, but like I said, the first thing I've asked them to do on the city side that I have the authority to do is to give me an estimate and at least look at patchwork and look at what they could do to make it more presentable and try to take care of it and make it in better condition.
Thank you, Councilman. Our next question is a quick one. It's a question specific to the renovation at 1981 and whether or not washers and dryers will be added either in unit or in the basement.
I'll take that one. About time I speak. The short answer is yes. There will be washers and dryers added into the basement to fashion a laundry room.
Good
Excellent.
answer, Russell.
That was.
All right, we have another question.
Softball.
We have another question about the new parking area that you're creating and how it will be screened from the adjacent houses, both visually and acoustically. Fencing, the uptown structure is already very visible from the kitchens on those homes. So, Rick or Russell, if you could just speak to that a little bit. I think you've already addressed who will be parking there, which was part of the question, but just a question about screening.
Yeah, there definitely should be, we put some of these up in other developments, but there definitely would be a solid fence. I would not have a chain link or anything like that, but a solid fence that would be obviously higher than the cars, so that they're really not visual to anybody that's in that back lot. And it's also creates the owners of the houses or the tenants or whatever, then can truly have a backyard, which at this point, it seems like it's not being used that way, but they would be able to have a solid fence there that looks good.
Great.
Great, thank you. The next question is a clarifying question about what the proposed material is above the brick. So if you could maybe go to that facade slide and just talk through the different types of brick, stone, and hardy board on the different pieces of elevation.
Do you want me to talk, Dan, or would you like to talk, Dan? Are you there, Dan?
You're doing a great job, Rick, but I can run down the materials. We have them off to the side here.
Right. Well, why don't I let you?
Okay, I mean, it's a combination of historic color materials. It's a hardy plank siding, so it's not like a vinyl siding or something like that. It's a stout board. It's going to be similar to what was used on the 1975, and the fact that it was a solid based material, integral colored, so it weathers extremely well. And then full size brick. This isn't thin brick or stucco made to look like brick. This is actual brick that's being shown for the column base and the colonnade at the lower level. And then in addition is actual stone, cast stone elements that will be used up to make up the accents on the elevations. So these are not like your cheapy, fakey materials. These are true materials that match the architecture of the buildings that we're complementing here.
Also, there's different patterns of the hardy board, like there's vertical and horizontal materials that, if you look closely, I don't know if you could, yeah, maybe that one you can see like, first of all, there's a cornice at the top. But then there's also a vertical hardy board, and then underneath it is a horizontal, different color, but a horizontal hardy board. So it adds, to me, it adds a flavor to the design.
Yeah, and Rick, remember, a lot of these materials came from our work when we worked with Blaine before in Larchmere, where they wanted, similar materials to meet the fabric of that street. So it's a very similar approach.
Thank you. We did have a couple of questions from earlier in the presentation about clarification from support of the city. Will the residential tax abatement be used as part of the project financing?
Yeah, that's going to be the only component of financing that we're going to use is tax abatement. But nothing else. We're not asking for TIF. We're not asking for any infrastructure dollars. Just so everyone knows, the tax abatement program is a legislation type program that's been established, and you just apply for it. It is not something that needs to be approved by council or anything like that. It's a standard program that exists already.
Thanks, Rick.
And Dan, our next question, maybe you can help answer whether any zoning variances will be needed in the plans that you've proposed. And there was a specific question about the side yard distance on the eastern border between the new construction and the yellow house.
We go. Yes, right now our understanding after review with the city is that no variances are required at this time. The setback on the parcel that you see adjacent to the existing house is exactly where the existing garage is, and that setback in a residential district can be as low as 0. And that's what we're illustrating right now. We did strive on the design, even though it meant sacrificing some habitable space. And of course, if you're trying to develop housing, you want to develop as much land as you possibly can. But we did, taking clues from the folks that we work with, is that the porches and the main structure of the building facing Hessler aligns with the existing structures down the street. So we found that to be very important, and that is what's illustrated in this image of how the building is set and fronted with the existing houses along the street. So we're not taking away any of the character of Hessler now. Okay, so I think that answers that, Liz.
Yes, thank you. And just while you were on that previous slide, there was a comment, just to be sure, that currently some 2-family homes are listed as apartments. So as the project moves forward and we continue through the design process, we'll make sure to correct that on the site.
Yeah, we will correct that. Yeah, unfortunately, that is how they're listed on the city map. So we'll correct that.
Terrific. Question about the construction. Where will construction vehicles come in and out of the site?
That's going to be a tough one. We're going to try to stay off of Hessler as much as we can. And it'll mostly go down that rear drive that leads to the parking. The only problem we'll have is probably going to be, we're going to need, oh, it says my internet connection went again. Is that?
We can hear you still.
Okay. The only problem we'll have is probably for a few days or whatever. Actually one day, I think we could get the whole pad poured with the concrete trucks, and they won't fit down that side. They're going to have to come down to Hessler. So other than that, for one day of pouring, I think we can pretty much not disturb Hessler and have all the construction vehicles go down the existing driveway. What I would hope to do is excavate early and at least get gravel down on the back parking, so that people working on the projects can park back there and not bother anybody else anywhere else, and not have trucks all over the place.
Thank you, Rick. The next question has to do with timeline, target dates for meeting with Euclid Corridor Design Review and Landmarks Commission, as well as target dates for the rehabs and new construction to begin.
I think the next one is going to be the design review with the UCI ARB will be the next one, and I forget the date that's scheduled, like the 23rd or something like that. If that, it really depends on whether there's BBAC meetings. If there's BBAC meetings, that'll delay us going to Landmarks. If they approve it at the first meeting, then we would probably go to Landmarks around March 4th. As far as timeline for the project, from the houses, we would hope to do 1981 over the summer when students are not there. 1975 is same time. The Micros building would start ideally, I would say June or July. We will want to do all the foundation and get the shell up at least before winter, and would probably go till March of 22.
Excellent. We do have a series of other questions, again, about the staging of construction. Will the streets be blocked? Will residents have access to their homes during the time that the construction vehicles are there? I know you talked about this and touched on it just a little bit already, but if you could give just a little bit more information on that. And then there are some concerns about where the workers will park. I think that's all kind of related to the construction question.
Yeah, I think one of the first things we're gonna, I thought I touched on this, but let me go into more detail. One of the first things we're gonna want to do is excavate the site, including the parking area in the back, and get that all prepped right away. It also helps with the foundation pour. There's not going to be a basement. So, and then the dirt, whether if we can redistribute it, we will. So that doesn't have to be carted out. And then we would gravel that back area. And then all the construction and everybody, there's enough room back there that we can park the employees that are working and also stage any material that has to be dropped off back there. So that's an important area because otherwise we really do not have, which I think is where the question was going, we do not have space for the construction material and parking. It's going to be a problem if, without that area.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes. Sorry, we're just going up to the questions again.
So the next question, Rick, if you could answer, there's a question about whether the micro units will only be for one individual or two would be allowed. And then if you could share a cost or range of cost for the unit.
Okay, I'll leave most of this to Russell because once we get a CFO, they throw me off the project and I'm not allowed back in anymore. As far as people, the number of people, in general, because they're only 460 square feet, they do not fit the, if a couple has 5 kids, this is not for them. The concept came up, and maybe I should divert to this a little bit. The concept came up with, on my development, mostly downtown that I learned through the years, the units that rented the fastest were the smallest units, I think because they were the cheaper units. And they did not have storage, and there were studios, and the bedroom would be next to the kitchen without any cabinetry. And I just felt, I know I'm painting a picture extreme, but I felt like it was not conducive to good living. So this is where this idea came up with to me. And the other thing is socially, it seems like from what I've been reading is there's more, they say 70% of the population, I don't know if the pandemic has changed this, but 70% of the population will be living in urban areas. And the other component is there's a lot less people forming traditional type families. So because of all that, this was a product that we thought it was the time, maybe a little ahead of schedule. The other thing was, is this something you put in Cleveland or would it work much better in a Washington, DC or whatever? So especially the pandemic and my affiliation with Cleveland, we wanted to, we started this and this is the new idea. But the concept here, I would think mostly would be a single person or a couple that would live in these units and not large families. So they're either going to be one individual or 2 individuals to answer that. As far as the marketing, that's probably for Russell.
Yeah. Well, why don't I just roll right into that then? Let's see, one on rent and then who the mix of users is likely to be. I saw several kind of related questions in the chat about that. So we haven't set specific rental rates yet because we're still early in the game. But for the micro building, you're looking at something in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $1,600 a month is what our budget and our market research is supported. So I think it's likely to fall into that range. An open question right now is, do we include everything in the rent? Because these are very efficient units in terms of heating and cooling and water, or do we charge like normal landlords do? But save those minor details. That would be the range of the rental rates we anticipate. Less than that for the two other buildings. There's a wide range because there's a wide range of unit types in those buildings. So those would be a much bigger span, maybe from, you know, what do we have? Maybe 850 to 1350 or something in that broad range. In terms of the questions about the mixture, the micro building that we're looking at now, we fully anticipate to be appealing to professionals associated with the major institutions, primarily singles, as Rick indicated, some couples. Also expected to be appealing to professional and graduate students, whether they're MBA students, law students, medical students, who have the lifestyle desire, the dollars to have that kind of private space that they prefer. And obviously the location vis-a-vis the business school, the law school would be attractive to them. And the two other buildings, little different answer. The 1981 building that someone asked about, the washers and dryers, we're going to be, that sets up well as essential. What's happening? Okay, thank you. That building sets up very well for student housing. When I say student housing, in all probability, that means here again, professional and graduate students or upper class undergraduates, i.e. Seniors. And there was only 23 of those, 16 of those units. In the 1975 building to the left, that will probably be a mixture of non-students and civilians, if you will, professional, because there's some nice 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units.
Can I speak about one thing that I forgot about in the presentation?
Sure.
If that's okay. One thing that I forgot to talk about was the mechanicals. The mechanicals are, each unit is self-contained. So there's actually a closet in the layout, and in that closet you have a okay, there it is. It's across from the bathroom. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you can see that. If you blow it up, you can see it. But in any case, one of the closets I call the basement closet because it has a washer and dryer in it, and above it is an electric hot water tank. Not a tank, but the Insta-Hot, so to speak, that handles all the water for the shower and dishwasher. Also, so that's one factor. The other thing that I didn't explain well is the kitchen. All the appliances are full size. They're not half size. They're not small. They're full. You have a full size kitchen, and you also have a bathroom that is bigger than full size. That in the 3.0, we're actually, if a person wants, they can either not have them, or they can have a glass shower enclosure within that. There also is the HVAC is a split system with the unit sitting on top of the cabinet, and the power for it is run off the panel within that particular unit. So if there's 23 apartments, there's 23 HVAC. There's not what I'm trying to say is there's not a centralized heating system, and there's not a centralized water system. It's all self-contained within the unit. So the unit is really, especially with this pandemic philosophy, the unit is self-contained. There's no one that you can't get COVID from the neighbor through an HVAC system or their water system or whatever. They're self-contained. Also, all the lighting is LED above the cabinets. You can see in this picture, There's no light fixtures except for those little downlights, but there's no lamps or anything like that. And it also runs off the same panel. So that being said, each unit is all electric. There's no gas. And environmentally, they're very well. So a unit doesn't cost a lot. Russell he can beat me up after this presentation, but the concept has always been that a person pays $1,500 a month, say, and for that, they get free parking, they get free utilities, they get free internet. They don't pay anything else. They can literally move into these fully furnished, modern furnished, with a suitcase. And everything is there. And they only write one check a month or wire one check a month.
Okay.
I just wanted to say.
Thank you, Rick. I know we have a lot of questions still in the Q&A. We're going to try to get to as many.
Okay, I'll be quiet. I won't talk
as
as much.
No, you're fine. I want to combine a couple of questions that have been asked related to stormwater management on the site. So there's a question of how, whether there are any permeable pavers being considered and just generally a site stormwater planning.
You're talking about for the back parking lot?
For the site in general. Yeah, but specifically with that back parking lot in mind, losing green space.
Yeah, the site will have the normal drainage that's required to run through to the sewers. The back site, to be very honest, I have not met with a civil engineer yet to worry about mostly the excavating to get the heights properly and how to do the drainage for that. So I'm sorry for this presentation, we haven't gone that far because we're still going through approvals and haven't started, actual CDs yet. So I don't have an answer on actually how the drainage will work. It will have to be drained, but I'm not sure how it's going to flow.
And going back to a design question, there was a question on how the size and scale of the new building was determined. Had you ever considered a smaller scale 2 to 3 story building here?
Yeah, we actually, one of the big debates that I had was whether to go with a 2-story 8 size unit or to go with a taller unit to work out the economics of it. I didn't think either one worked well. This really was a nice size because it fit the character of the street. A taller one I felt would be, it would stick out too much, and a shorter one wouldn't feel comfortable in the dynamics of the street. So after going through several different variations of smaller stories, higher stories, we settled on this one as being the best compromise. UCI never saw all those different ideas, but
Thank you, Rick. We also have a question about information of whether you will be informed about future meetings. We will definitely send an update to this group as the project moves through design review. Again, it will first go to Euclid Corridor design review and then Landmarks Commission. So we will send those dates, and the video of this meeting will be made available on our website. That link will also be shared with participants.
Good.
I do want to address a concern that was raised here about safety and some of the other tenants on the street itself. We, UCI, work with the UCPD to make sure that all of University Circle is safe. And, we address all of the calls that we get, and we are working with the developers to make sure that from an operations and management standpoint, that this is maintained at a very high level. We are have been talking to our partners at Case Western Reserve University, and that was important to them. And so collectively, we are working together to ensure that we're meeting a standard that the neighborhood can be comfortable with going forward. So I feel confident that, again, we've had very good communications and very good discussions about this moving forward.
Thanks, Debbie. The other question that I'm seeing a couple iterations of is about dumpsters, both during construction and planned dumpster locations for the final product.
Yeah, well, the dumpsters during construction are going to be an issue. I don't know if we'll be able to fit them down that driveway. We may have to go with smaller ones, but we'll work that out with a dumpster company, you know, what's the best way to do it. One thing we do have to do is recycle our debris. And that's a requirement for the tax abatement anyways. So we'll be doing that. As far as, I don't think management of debris, I'm not even sure how the houses do it. Actually, Debbie, you may.
Well, I'll field that one, Rick. So the completed project, once it's operating with, you know, tenants in that, we're going to have a small dumpster in the rear and a private service to pull away the trash. If the dumpsters have trouble fitting, then totes will do the same thing. But it's a private service versus taking it, you know, to the street. That's not what's going to happen.
And again, there's a question about the questions and comments. You know, I think we had originally billed this meeting to be an hour, and we're well over that time now. We'll take a few more of the questions and go through them, but these will all be downloaded and made available to, as we said earlier, the Euclid Corridor Design Review that will review the project, as well as the Landmarks Commission, and, you know, if appropriate at the right time, to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So I think we do have some city representatives that have joined us on the call. And again, we'll make sure that all these comments and answers get back to them so that they can review and understand the conversation that we've had today.
Good.
Debbie, one smaller point, just because this is for the record, I was looking at my notes. I realized I misspoke earlier to the person who was asking about 1981. And I mentioned 16 units. That's wrong. I'm in the parlance of bedrooms. So we have 16 individual bedrooms, but there are 4 apartments in 1981.
And there's a lot of questions still coming in. So just trying to find some.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's one that came in here. Will the developer consider making changes to the project based on today's comments? That is the intention of the meeting, to get comments for the development team to consider as this moves through both the University Circle Architectural Review Board, the Euclid Corridor Design Review, and Landmarks Commission. So we do anticipate that there will be responsive changes to the project as it moves forward. And again, we'll share dates for those meetings as they are scheduled with this group.
And Mr. Blonsky, they also received something in the mail from the city too, right? Because they're in close proximity.
That is only for zoning. And so if it does not require going to BZA, residents are not notified of design review.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. There is a question about the micro units, and if that doesn't turn out to be a successful product, if there's anything that you can do to modify the building itself. You might want to speak to the other products that you've already got on the market and underway, and the success of those. I think that this is a type of product that's a little bit different than we've seen in Circle, and I think that there really could be a significant demand for that. And again, you've got some other projects that you're working on. Maybe you want to speak to those.
Russell, do you want to, or you want me to?
Go for it.
Okay. There's really not been we have 2 projects under construction as we speak. Those we're very excited about. One is in Tremont, the other is in Larchmere. And so far we've seen good response, and we expect to have good response. I mean, we always could modify it if we had to. I don't anticipate or see that happening, and I don't think that's gonna bear out. But to your point, if you looked at the floor plan, theoretically, you could take a wall out in between each unit, and all of a sudden you have a 920 square foot size unit. You already have the kitchen and the bedrooms, you eliminate some of that. So yes, it could be modified, but I do not anticipate that being the case.
We had a question about the electric cars and how they'll work. I think that's an interesting new product. If you want to address that, Rick.
Yeah, that was a concept I have. The idea being, you know, everything, I have an e-bike and I have an electric car, and I'm also very interested in when I visit other cities, haven't done it with the pandemic, but when more dense cities as New York and Washington and Miami, et cetera, that you see that you think UCI has a parking problem, you should see these other places. And I know society is slowly transitioning to less cars, but so far we have not seen that. So this is kind of a hybrid concept. The concept being, and I don't know if we'll do it here or not, but on one of the projects, we're going to test it out. But the idea being that if I were, and the city actually told me this, that typically it costs an individual $9,600 a year to own a car. That includes payments, insurance, gas, maintenance, etc. So if you think about that, that's about $800 a month, almost equal to half your rent. That's going towards a vehicle that you may not drive very often. So the concept here is, let's say in the micro building, let's say 7 people decide they would like to participate in a car sharing. And instead of charging them $800 a month, we could charge $400 a month. And they don't have to own a car, they don't have to maintain it, they just go out and take it whenever they want. They're small cars, so they're used locally. And if they're going to go on a long trip, they would probably rent a car or fly. One of the reasons for the micros is we try to locate them where it's near transportation that is, you know, like the Healthline corridor and et cetera. And then also e-bikes is another thing that's come up. And if we can slowly transition to that, basically a person living in a unit could pay, let's say, an additional $400 rent. They pay it once. They go out and take the car whenever they want. It isn't a zip car thing where you have to order it. It's actually sitting there. They go and take it. When they're done with it, they pull it back and it charges on the electrical system. So they don't have to worry about anything. So that's kind of the concept. Or if there's a bunch of e-bikes, you know, they can get on an e-bike and go anywhere around. And it transitions people away from being so dependent on one person, one car. And I think it's going to be a movement in society, especially with the urban movement going forward. I don't know that in Cleveland it's there yet, but it's an interesting idea. And we'd like to try it it isn't for everyone, but for the people that would like to try it, we'd like to make that available.
Perfect, thank you. Well, we are coming up on an hour and a half here. I do want to ask one other question just for clarity, because I think it's come up several times. And I thought it was answered, but that is about the zoning and whether or not the project would go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. There still seems to be several questions about that. I know, Dan, you had addressed that before. Is the height within the existing zoning, or would that require a variance?
No. Currently, the height is permitted. I mean, we can see in the photograph the building that we live next to. the height of the existing building in this district.
And the setbacks appear again to be in alignment with the other buildings on the street, correct? So they're really, to your knowledge, there should be no zoning variances.
That's correct. The setback we are meeting. We're actually, we could have set the building back even farther, but it was encouraged that we align with the existing facades of the street and keep a similar proportion of the existing, the tank, the big brick building. We keep the proportion of the sidewalk to building facade the same as well, because this building is perceived, this infill building in this negative space on the street is looked as a book match to the existing tank building, and then a gateway into the rest of the neighborhood as the scale changes. So the zoning kind of encouraged the way we've developed the building.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Dan. Well, again, we'd like to thank everyone who.
Debbie, this is Chris. If I may, I just wanted to thank, first of all, everybody who's made comments and asked questions. I think it appropriate for us to download them and share them with our architectural review board for that conversation, and obviously with city. And I want to say thanks to Councilman Griffin for convening us and being here. The other thing is there are a number of questions that are slightly off-site but related, and it's been about 5 years since we were engaged with Hessler Neighborhoods Association and the city on some street infrastructure fixes and some ideas. I think it goes back to Don Angus and at the city. It would be nice to re-up those conversations with the city. I know that Councilman gave a pretty good primer at the beginning about the city's outlook on capital, but sidewalk condition, street condition, Hessler Court itself is, again, as referenced here on the National Register. I think it would be a positive endeavor to work with neighbors and with the proposing developers and Councilman Griffin and others at the city on this. So if we could reconvene on that somehow through planning, I'd just encourage it. And thanks again to all who commented and who took the time tonight for last 90 minutes on a very important issue.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We will put the plans up on our website so people can view them, and we will have an opportunity again if you want to have additional comments and questions, and we will make sure these are transmitted to the city and work with the development team to see what other things we can address based upon your questions and comments. So again, thank you everybody for being here tonight. We had a really great turnout, and we do appreciate everyone's interest and excitement about this project. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody.